I'll give you everything you need to become the artist you're meant to be. But in return, you have to promise me one thing, no holding back. Not in your work, and not with me. That's what Victoria Ashford said to me on a Tuesday night in her private gallery office, her fingers wrapped around a glass of Merlot, her eyes holding mine with an intensity that made it impossible to look away. I was 29 years old, broke, and desperate. She was 45, elegant, and entirely out of my league. I should have said no, should have walked out of that oak-paneled room with its priceless paintings and Persian rugs, gotten on the subway back to my studio apartment in Bushwick, and forgotten the whole thing. Instead, I said, "What kind of promise?" She smiled, then slow, knowing. "Dangerous." That's what I thought you'd say, but I'm getting ahead of myself. Let me tell you how I ended up in that office, making a deal with a woman who would change my life in ways I couldn't possibly have imagined. Let me tell you about the 6 months that followed, when I learned that some lessons can't be taught in galleries or studios. Some lessons require you to risk everything. This is that story. And if you think you know where it's going, trust me, you don't. My name is Alex Chen, and 3 months before I met Victoria, my life was falling apart in that specific way that only happens to artists in New York. I was 29, working 60 hours a week as a graphic designer for a startup that paid barely enough to cover rent on a 300 square foot studio in Bushwick. My real passion, oil painting, happened in stolen hours between 11 p.m. and 3 a.m., when exhaustion and caffeine combined into something that felt almost like inspiration. My girlfriend of 4 years, Jessica, had left 2 months earlier. Not dramatically, just quietly. One Sunday morning, she'd looked at the canvases stacked against every wall of our apartment and said, "I can't do this anymore, Alex. I can't watch you destroy yourself for a dream that isn't going to happen." At 29, I had exactly 3 painting sales to my name. Total earnings, $2,400. I'd been rejected from 73 galleries in the past year. My parents called every Sunday from San Francisco. Every Sunday, I lied about how great things were going. Then, on a rainy October evening, everything changed. The Ashford Gallery was in Chelsea, the kind of place where the door handle probably cost more than my monthly rent. I wasn't supposed to be there. I'd gotten on the wrong train after rejection number 74 and ended up at 23rd Street instead of Astor Place. When I emerged from the subway, it was pouring. I ducked into the first doorway I saw. The warmth hit me first, then the smell, old wood, expensive perfume, and what I later learned was called museum air. "We're closing in 10 minutes. I turned and saw her for the first time. Victoria Ashford was standing near a Rothko, wearing a charcoal dress. She was tall, maybe 5'9", with dark hair pulled back and intelligent eyes that made you look twice. "Sorry," I said, water dripping onto her marble floor. "Just needed to get out of the rain." She studied me. "You're soaked. Give it 5 minutes. Do you know anything about art?" she asked suddenly. "Some. I paint." "What do you paint?" "Portraits. But not pretty ones. I paint people at their most vulnerable." She was quiet. Then, "Show me your phone." I pulled it out, opened my photo album. She scrolled through raw sketches, half-finished paintings, subway strangers. "This one," she said, stopping on an old man sleeping on the L train. "This is real. This is what galleries are afraid to show." She looked up. "What's your name?" "Alex Chen." "Victoria Ashford? Have you shown anywhere?" 74 galleries, 74 rejections, 74 galleries that don't understand what they're looking at." She paused. "Your technique needs work, but you see people? Really see them? That can't be taught. Come back Thursday, 7 p.m. Bring actual canvases, because terrible artists don't paint like that. Don't be late." I came back Thursday with 3 canvases. Victoria was waiting in her office, dark wood, leather chairs, floor-to-ceiling bookshelves. "Let me see them." She walked around them for 5 full minutes without speaking. "Finally, you have a gift for capturing loneliness. But your color theory is weak. Your brushwork rushed." She looked at me. "However, you see people. That can't be taught. The rest can. Are you offering to teach me?" "I'm offering you a deal. 3 months. You work here 3 nights a week, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday. 7 to 10 p.m. I'll teach you everything. In return, you help with gallery work. And when you're ready, I'll give you your first show." "Here." I stared. "You're serious?" I don't joke about art, Alex. Why me? Because I'm tired of showing safe art to rich people who buy it to match their couches. I want to show something real. What's the catch? You have to trust me. Completely. Even when it's hard. Her eyes held mine. Can you do that? I should have asked more questions. Instead, yes. She smiled. Good. We start Tuesday. Bring coffee. I take mine black. The first Tuesday, she taught me color theory, using a Vermeer reproduction. Look at how he uses ultramarine, she said, standing close enough that I could smell her perfume. It's not just blue. It's the temperature of loneliness. Her finger traced the painting. I found myself watching her hand instead. Are you listening, Alex? I jerked my attention back. Yes. Temperature. She turned, and suddenly her face was inches from mine. You're supposed to be looking at the painting, not at me. Sorry, but she didn't move away. For a heartbeat, maybe two, we stayed there close enough that I could see the gold flecks in her eyes. Then she stepped back. Pay attention. This matters. Asterisk asterisk new section 1. Slow burn expansion. The storm night. To 250 words. Asterisk asterisk. 3 weeks into my apprenticeship, a freak November storm hit Manhattan. I just arrived at the gallery when Victoria's phone rang. She answered, her expression darkening. How bad? All of it? I'm on my way. She hung up. The climate control system failed at the warehouse. If we don't move the paintings tonight, humidity will destroy them. I'll help. Alex, it's going to take hours. I said I'll help. We took a cab to a warehouse in Red Hook. Rain hammered the metal roof like a drum as we worked, carefully wrapping and moving canvases worth more than I'd earn in a lifetime. The warehouse was freezing, the heating had gone out along with the climate control, and our breath came out in clouds. Victoria had shed her blazer within the first hour, her silk blouse clinging to her from humidity and exertion. I'd rolled up my sleeves, sweat mixing with rain that had soaked through my jacket. We didn't talk much, just worked in sync, her directing, me lifting, both of us moving with the kind of efficiency that comes from shared purpose. By midnight, we were exhausted. My arms ached. Victoria's hair had come loose from its clip, falling around her face. By 2 a.m., we were down to the last pieces, and something had shifted between us. The late hour, the storm, the shared exhaustion, it stripped away pretense. This one, Victoria said, pointing to a massive abstract Apolloch. I realized, carefully, it's worth $2 million. We lifted it together, her hands next to mine on the frame. The painting shifted unexpectedly, and suddenly we were closer than we'd meant to be, both of us holding it between us, both of us breathing hard from exertion. I could smell her perfume mixed with sweat, could see a smudge of dust on her cheek. Steady, she whispered, her breath warm against my face. I looked up, found her watching me with an expression I couldn't read, something between fear and want. We stood there, the painting between us like a barrier and a bridge, the storm outside making the warehouse feel like its own world, like we were the only two people who existed. Victoria, I started, not sure what I was going to say. Then her phone rang again. The spell broke. We set the painting down carefully, stepped apart. We finished at 3 a.m. In the cab back to Manhattan, Victoria fell asleep against my shoulder. I didn't move the entire ride, didn't dare shift, even when my arm went numb. Afraid to wake her, afraid to break whatever this was becoming. Through the rain-streaked window, I watched the city lights blur past and thought, I'm in trouble. I'm falling for a woman I can never have. But I was already too far gone to care. Asterisk, asterisk, new section 2. Building foundation, the coat scene, to 150 words. Asterisk, asterisk. A week later, I arrived early to find the gallery dark except for her office. Victoria was slumped over her desk, surrounded by paperwork, asleep. I stood in the doorway, just watching. She looked different like this, vulnerable. The polished curator mask was gone. I could see the exhaustion, the weight of running 3 galleries, the loneliness she tried to hide. Without thinking, I shrugged off my jacket and draped it over her shoulders. She stirred slightly, pulled it closer, but didn't wake. I left quietly, went to work on my painting. An hour later, she emerged from her office, my jacket still wrapped around her, her hair slightly messed. You let me sleep. You needed it. She looked at the jacket, then at me. Something in her expression softened. Thank you, Alex. It was the first time she'd said my name like that. Like I mattered. Like I was more than just a student. Like I was someone she could trust. 4 weeks in, we were hanging a major show. Opening the next morning, by 2 a.m., we were running on coffee and adrenaline. Higher. There. Victoria stood back, squinting. Perfect. I climbed down, arms aching. The gallery was silent except for our breathing. Last one, we worked in comfortable silence. When I climbed down, she was standing too close. Intentionally close. You're good at this, she said quietly. The physical work. I like working with my hands. Something in her expression changed. I've noticed. The air felt charged. I could reach out and touch her. Instead, I grabbed my jacket. It's late. So should you. Neither of us moved. Then her phone buzzed. The moment broke. A week later, I arrived early to find Victoria with a client, Richard Brennan, old money collector whose family name was on museum wings. I stopped to look at a painting. She was different with him. Polished. Her laugh practiced. She touched his arm when she made a point. She was selling herself as someone who belonged in his world. I felt something dark twist in my chest. The understanding that I'd never be part of that world, where people spent more on a painting than I made in a year, and I wasn't. Later, in her office, I couldn't shake it. You were different today. With that collector. She looked up. Richard Brennan? He's one of my best clients. You touched his arm. Her eyebrows rose. Are you jealous? I don't know. I ran a hand through my hair. When I saw you with him, I realized I'll never give you that. That kind of life. She came around the desk. Alex, look at me. I did. Richard Brennan is boring. He'll buy 3 paintings a year. And I don't think about him once when he leaves. She stepped closer. You. I think about constantly. Yeah? Yeah. She touched my face. Stop comparing yourself to people who don't matter. He matters to your business. You matter to me. It was the closest she'd come to admitting what was between us. 2 weeks later, I'd been working on a portrait of Victoria, though I hadn't told her. What are you working on? She asked, suddenly behind me. I tried to cover it, but she caught my wrist. Let me see. I stepped aside. I'd painted her the way I saw her, not the polished curator, but the woman underneath. Tired, lonely, beautiful. She was quiet for a long time. When she spoke, her voice was softer. Is this how you see me? We were standing close again. I'm 45 years old, Alex. I know. I'm old enough to be your mother. You're not my mother. She smiled, sad, wry, then stepped back. It's late. You should go home. Victoria. Good night, Alex. But as I left, I saw her looking at the portrait again. It was a Friday in early December. We'd been working late. The gallery was dark except for her office, snow falling outside. I'd brought wine. We'd been trading sips, arguing about abstract expressionism. Rothko was a philosopher who happened to use paint, she said, the wine making her less careful. Rothko was depressed and turned it into real estate for rich people's walls. She laughed, really laughed. God, you're insufferable. You like it. I absolutely do not. Liar. She set down her glass, smile fading. Alex, don't. Don't tell me this is inappropriate. Don't tell me you're too old. It is a bad idea. I'm your mentor. There's a power dynamic. I'm 29, not 19. I'm here because I chose to be. You're here because I offered you something you desperately needed. That's bullshit and you know it. She stood, putting the desk between us. You should go home. Why? Because you're scared? Because I'm smart enough to know the difference between attraction and disaster. What if they're the same thing? She looked at me, then quietly. That's what I'm afraid of. I left. But later I painted her again, catching the exact expression she'd worn, the vulnerability beneath the armor. I was falling in love with Victoria Ashford, and I had no idea what to do about it. The breaking point came 2 weeks before Christmas. I'd been working at the gallery for 2.5 months. My painting had transformed emotion and craft working together now, but maintaining distance became impossible. That Tuesday, Victoria was staring at a technically perfect still life that said nothing. Tell me what's wrong with it. It's competent, boring, safe. So why am I considering it? I stood beside her. Because it'll sell. Good business decision. She looked at me. I hate that you're right. Then don't show it. You think it's easy to take risks when you have something to lose? I think you're scared. not of bad business, of admitting what you actually want. Her eyes flashed. And what do I want, Alex? You want to show real art. Stop pretending you're satisfied. I paused. And stop pretending there's nothing between us. You don't know what you're talking about, she said, but her voice lacked conviction. Don't I? You're 45 and I'm 29, and there are 1,000 reasons this is terrible. But that doesn't change that you look at me the same way I look at you. Alex, tell me I'm wrong. She opened her mouth, closed it. I'm old enough to be your mother. Then teach me everything you know. Her breath caught. Then she closed the distance. The kiss was desperate, like we were both drowning and the other was air. When we broke apart, both breathing hard. This is a mistake, she whispered. I know. We should stop. We should? Neither moved. I don't want to stop, she said finally. Neither do I. But we have to be careful. This stays between us. What if I already know what this is? She smiled, sad, knowing. Then you're braver than I am. What followed were 2 months of stolen moments. We'd meet at her West Village brownstone. Wine. Talking about art and life. She taught me about more than painting wine, music, navigating the art world. She told me about her brief marriage to a painter more interested in her connections than her, about building her gallery from nothing. I told her about my family, the pressure to be practical, about Jessica, how I'd never felt with her, what I felt with Victoria. What do you feel? She asked one night. Like I finally understand falling in love. She was quiet. I'm going to hurt you, Alex. Because I'm 45 and terrified? Because this can't last. I kissed her to stop the words. I'm here, now. That's all that matters. I told Marcus about Victoria on a Tuesday afternoon. We were at our usual coffee shop, and he'd been asking why I'd been distracted. How old is she? 45. Jesus, Alex. I know. That's a 16-year age gap. And she's your boss. She's my mentor. Is it? What happens when this blows up? And it will. He leaned forward. What happens to your career? I didn't have an answer. Later, I'd think about how Marcus had seen the ending before I did. But secrets have a way of unraveling. Asterisk, asterisk, new section 3. The crisis expansion. Daniel's campaign to 250 words. It started with a photograph. Daniel, another gallery owner, had seen us at a Soho restaurant. The photo showed up in my DMs. Interesting. Does her board know she's sleeping with her gallery assistants? I showed Victoria. Watched her face go pale. It's not about money, she said. It's about power. But Daniel didn't stop with one photo. Over the next week, things started happening. Small things. A gallery intern mentioned she'd heard interesting rumors about Victoria's mentorship program. One of Victoria's artists asked, casually, if she was personally invested in promoting new talent. Then Victoria's phone rang during one of our sessions. I watched her face drain of color as she listened. Harrison just pulled his funding, she said after hanging up. Said he'd heard concerning things about my judgment. Daniel called him. I know it. The next day, I arrived at the gallery to find the staff whispering. They went silent when they saw me. One of them, Sarah, who'd always been friendly, looked away. They know. Victoria said that night in her office. Or they suspect. Daniel's not just threatening anymore. He's destroying my reputation, piece by piece. So we go public, we tell the truth. The truth? She stood abruptly. That I'm sleeping with my assistant? That every painting you'll ever sell will be tainted by the assumption you fucked your way onto gallery walls? We can fight this. Daniel sent this today. She handed me her phone. It was an email to Victoria's entire professional network. Subject line, concerns about ethical standards at Ashford Gallery. The body was carefully worded, never quite accusing, just raising questions about mentorship boundaries and favoritism. He's not just threatening us anymore, Alex. He's already pulling the trigger. Asterisk, asterisk. Brutal, firing scene. Asterisk, asterisk. 2 days later, Daniel called Victoria's largest investor directly. He told Harrison I was compromised, Victoria said, her voice hollow. We were in her office after hours, making decisions based on personal relationships rather than artistic merit. What did Harrison say? He wants to meet. Tomorrow. She looked scared. He's going to ask about you. So tell him the truth. We're both adults. The truth? She stood abruptly. The truth is I'm a 45-year-old curator who started sleeping with her 29-year-old assistant. The truth is, I promised you a show before we got involved, which means every painting you sell will be tainted. That's not fair. Fair doesn't matter. Perception matters. And the perception is that I'm either a predator or a fool. Either way, everything I've built for 20 years. Her voice cracked. It's over. We'll fight this. You need to leave. The words were so quiet I almost missed them. What? She wouldn't look at me. You're fired. Effective immediately. Victoria. Go, Alex. Her voice was cold now. Professional. Before I call security. You don't mean that. I mean it. She finally met my eyes. Not anger. Fear. This was a mistake from the beginning. I love you. That doesn't matter. The hell it doesn't. What do you want from me? You want me to destroy everything I've worked for? I want you to fight for us. There is no us. The words echoed. There's a 45-year-old woman who should have known better, and a 29-year-old artist whose career will be dead before it starts. She turned away. Leave. And don't come back. I left. Because I could see the tears streaming down her face. And I realized she thought she was protecting me. She was wrong. But she was too scared to see it. Asterisk, asterisk, new section 4. The breakup expansion. 3 weeks of hell. I didn't speak to Victoria for 3 weeks. The first week, I called every day. Voicemail. I texted. Read receipts. No responses. I showed up at the gallery, the new intern. Some kid from Pratt with impeccable fashion sense said she was unavailable. When will she be available? She said to tell you she's not taking meetings. I'm not a meeting. I know who you are, man. He'd lowered his voice, sympathetic. She told me to say that, especially to you. Especially to you. The words haunted me for days. The second week, I stopped calling. But I couldn't stop painting. I'd go back to my Bushwick studio, that 300 square feet that suddenly felt like a prison, and try to work. Try to paint anything. Anyone else. The subway portraits that had gotten Victoria's attention. Street scenes. Abstract experiments. I couldn't. Every canvas became Victoria. Victoria laughing at something I'd said about Rothko. Victoria concentrating on a painting. That little furrow between her eyebrows. Victoria in the warehouse at 2 a.m., hair falling loose, exhausted and beautiful. Victoria sleeping against my shoulder in the cab. Victoria in my jacket at her desk. Victoria backing away from me in her office. Tears streaming down her face as she told me to leave. My apartment filled with portraits of her. Dozens of them. I'd paint through the night, collapse at dawn, wake up at noon, covered in paint, and start again. I stopped going to my day job. Stopped answering my parents' Sunday calls. I wasn't eating survived on coffee and whatever was easiest to grab from the bodega. Barely sleeping 3-4 hours max, filled with dreams of her. Marcus came by midweek too, took one look around, and physically dragged me to a diner. Made me eat pancakes while he stared at me. You look like shit, man. Thanks. I'm serious. When's the last time you slept? Really slept? I couldn't remember. This is concerning, Alex. Like, really concerning? Jessica, who I ran into at a coffee shop near the end of week 2, said I looked like hell warmed over and asked if I was on drugs. When I said no, she said, "Are you sure? Because you look worse than when we broke up." And that was pretty bad. The third week was worse because I'd started to believe she was right, that we were a mistake, that I'd been naive, stupidly. Foolishly naive to think a 29-year-old failed artist and a 45-year-old gallery owner could make it work. That love was enough. That art was enough. I stared at the paintings covering my walls. Every surface of my tiny apartment was covered with her face. My entire studio had become a shrine to a woman who'd told me to leave and not come back. It was pathetic, obsessive, the kind of thing that, if I saw it in a movie, I'd call unhealthy. Marcus came over again at the start of week 3, took one look at the new paintings and said, "Man, this is either genius or a mental breakdown. I honestly can't tell which." I couldn't either, but I couldn't stop. My parents called for their Sunday check-in. I told them I was fine. I wasn't fine. Then, on a gray January morning, I got an email. Asterisk. Your show is scheduled for March 15th. The gallery is yours. Come prepared. Asterisk. No explanation. Just the thing she'd promised from the beginning. I stared at those words for an hour. Then I looked around my apartment at the dozens of portraits of Victoria covering every surface. And I started to plan. I showed up on March 15th with 15 paintings. Every single one was a portrait of her hands as she lectured, her profile studying a canvas, the curve of her back reaching for a book. I painted her the way I saw her, the way I'd always seen her. Victoria arrived an hour before opening, walked through in silence. When she reached the last one, her sleeping, vulnerable, she stopped. "You can't show these," she said quietly. "Why not?" "Because everyone will know, and they'll destroy you for it. Let them try." She turned. "Alex, I love you. I've loved you since that night you said you were afraid. And I don't care who knows it. I don't care what it costs. Because you taught me that real art requires risk, requires putting yourself on the line even when it's terrifying." I said that about painting. It's the same thing. Art, love, life. I stepped closer. "You taught me to stop hiding. So, I'm not hiding anymore." Tears streamed down her face. "You'll regret this. Maybe. But I'll regret not trying more." She looked at me, then kissed me there, in the gallery, with the door unlocked. Kissed me like she'd finally stopped being afraid. "You're an idiot," she whispered. "You love it." She laughed through tears. "I love you, you insufferable, talented, reckless." I kissed her again. When the doors opened at 7 p.m., we stood side by side. Victoria's hand found mine. I heard the whispers immediately. They started the moment people realized every painting was of Victoria. "Is that her assistant? The one she mentored? Oh my God. Those paintings are all of her. How old is he?" 29. "She's 45. Jesus." I felt Victoria tense beside me, but she kept her expression neutral. Gallery owner. Professional. But her hand in mine was shaking slightly. An older woman I recognized as one of Victoria's longtime clients walked up to the first portrait, the one of Victoria, laughing, unguarded, and studied it for a long moment. Then she turned to Victoria. "This is brave," she said. "Stupid, maybe. Career suicide, probably. But brave." Victoria squeezed my hand tighter. Another collector passed by, leaned into her companion. "I heard Daniel's been spreading rumors for weeks. This confirms everything. She's going to lose everything. Or maybe she's already lost it. 45-year-old woman throwing away her reputation for..." They walked away before finishing the sentence, but the damage was done. Harrison, the investor Daniel had called, stood in front of the sleeping portrait for 5 full minutes. I counted every second, my heart pounding. This was the man who could end Victoria's career with a single phone call. The man who held her gallery's funding in his hands. Finally, he found Victoria. "You should have told me. I know. This is going to cause problems. Big problems. Daniel's already calling everyone we know." "I know." He looked at me, really looked at me, like he was trying to figure out if I was worth all this then back at Victoria. "The work is good. Really good. Raw. Honest. Real." He paused. "If you'd hidden this, if you'd tried to pretend, if you'd lied..." "And honesty I can work with." He walked away to study another painting, and Victoria exhaled shakily. "Did that just happen?" "I think so. We might survive this. We will survive this." But the whispers didn't stop. They followed us all night. Cradle robber. No gold digger. He's using her for connections. 16-year age gap. I heard he was her assistant when it started. Power imbalance. Throwing away her reputation for some kid half her age? Those investors are going to walk. Victoria heard every word. I could see it in the tightness around her eyes, the forced smile when people approached. But she didn't let go of my hand. Not once. Not even when Daniel himself showed up, stood in the corner with his arms crossed, watching us with a smile that said he'd already won. 3 paintings sold that night. Victoria lost 2 investors that week, gained 3 new ones the week after. The art blogs picked up the story. Some called it romantic, some inappropriate, most just interesting. My parents found out via Instagram, but Victoria and I? We moved into her brownstone 6 months later. She still teaches me not just about art, but about life, about patience, about building something real. On Tuesday nights, we paint together. She'll critique my work. "You're still impatient. You still use too much ultramarine." That's because ultramarine is perfect. Nothing's perfect. She'll look at me, and something will soften. No. But some things are worth the risk. I'm 31 now. Victoria is 47. We have dinner with my parents once a month. They were horrified at first, now openly affectionate with her. Sometimes, late at night, I catch her looking at me with wonder. What? Nothing. Just surprised. By what? That you stayed? That this worked? I pull her closer. You taught me everything you know, including how to love someone who's terrified of being loved. That wasn't on the curriculum. Best lesson anyway. People ask if I regret it, if I wish I'd taken the safe path. I tell them the truth. I don't think about the cost anymore. I only think about what I gained. I gained a partner who challenges me every day, who sees me completely and loves me anyway, who taught me that the best art and the best life requires you to risk everything for what you believe in. She said she was old enough to be my mother. I said she should teach me everything she knows. She taught me about art, about color and composition and how to translate emotion into paint. But more than that, she taught me about courage, about choosing something real over something easy, about loving someone not because it makes sense, but because you can't imagine your life without them. And if that's not worth a little scandal, then I don't know what is.